In his Madaraka Day address to the nation, President Uhuru Kenyatta said that he discerns a constitutional moment that will bring an end to violence that Kenya experiences during every election. Now, that constitutional moment is embodied in the Building Bridges initiative that seeks to entrench constitution reforms that are aimed at deepening the country's democratic credentials and lead to a much more inclusive society. But the question begs, does Kenya need constitutional reforms to attain these ideals? Now, to get a legal view of this, I'm joined online by Eliud Ngugi, an advocate of the High Court of Kenya and partner at Ngugi Mburu Advocates. It's nice to see you, Eliud, for such a long time. Eliud is also a very good friend of mine. Nice to see you, Eliud.
Thank you very much, Nina, for having me.
Alrighty. So let's start first. Let's start by hearing your take on the president's speech on reforming the constitution. Is the constitution of Kenya, this is a 2010 constitution, is it ripe for reforms?
The constitution was ready for reforms in 2010 when we actually had it. We had various decisions made by the courts. We had election petitions which took place later on in 2013 and then 2017, which required certain amendments to be made. And currently, an honest view is that this constitution is not ready for any amendments.
Yes. What do you think is pushing this BBI initiative? What is in their brain? What is Kenya gaining, or rather, what is the Kenya's planning to stand to gain from the constitutional changes at this particular time?
At the moment, Kenya does not stand to gain much. We have had the BBI conversation going on before the COVID-19 pandemic, which was meant to actually unite the nation. But as we can see, there is no unity happening in the country. What is happening currently has been divisions between those who are inside the leading party and those who are outside. And therefore, if you do not support the agendas of the ruling political party, then you're alienated from the government itself. And therefore, if there's any amendment to be made in this constitution, probably it's not at this point in time. At this point in time, we have other priorities and other agendas which need to be taken care of, and not the amendment of the constitution. And so, in my view, I think this is a very selfish move to make sure that we have an inclusive government, and a government that is going to actually retain those who are already there, whose term is almost over come 2022.
That said, so is the BBI process the best vehicle to deliver this particular reforms? Does it focus more on politics than inclusivity as it should be?
It does focus. It does focus more on politics rather than progress in the country. But basically, what the Article 257 of the Constitution envisions is that changes should come in place to actually ensure that of those articles of the Constitution which are not progressive. But for what we see in the BBI report, it's more of a political gain than what the Constitution will be foreseeing in terms of amending parts of that Constitution.
So as I was asking earlier, so what will be the best method to drive this inclusivity matter rather than the BBI?
Well, the Constitution provides for a referendum procedure. The inclusivity that we would, the best way to actually deal with this inclusivity of leaders would be probably through more engagement and giving life to the current provisions of the Constitution. That's what, for example, Article 27 of the Constitution provides that there should be equality, that there should be no discrimination on any person based on basis of tribe, gender, sexual orientation, and all those kind of things. And therefore, we need to give life to these articles of the Constitution and enforce them. And what we have a problem with is lack of leadership that is able to give life to the current provisions of the Constitution. We do not need to create any new laws. We need to use the laws that we currently have and say that we require to have inclusion. We require equality. There was an issue of a two-third gender rule. We need to foresee that come to pass. The courts have indicated time and again that we need to have more judges put in place. We need to have that done. The best way to heal this nation, to allow the changes which have been recommended in the BBI, is through enforcement of the provisions, the current provisions of the Constitution and the various laws that we have in this country.
Side, is the attention on the BBI process as a case of mixed priorities, considering that Kenya and indeed the whole world is currently fighting the COVID-19 pandemic?
It is a missed up priority in the view that the world and the nation at large is going through a pandemic, and the needs that need to be taken care of include providing medical care, ensure that COVID-19 does not spread over in other countries, ensuring that we actually look at how we can have the children, the countries access education, and we can go back to normalcy. But then is not relevant because the common mwananchi right now has been locked down in their house. There's no work, there's no food. They are thinking about what to eat next. They're not thinking about who should be elected or who should get what position in government. And so this is a very mixed up priority in terms of government not considering putting this aside until we are over and done with the pandemic.
All right. Well, Eliud, thank you very much for giving us your time. We do appreciate you.
Thank you very much.
So that was Eliud Ngugi, who is an advocate of the High Court and a partner at Ngugi and Mburu Advocates.